Before we get started, shirts! My shirt store is officially open. And look at that, I don't even need to give you a link. You can see them right there below my videos. At least, I hope you can. I guess I'll put a link in the description just in case. Also, I'm attending lots of events over the next few months, and there's info about those, and about shirts, and about Arlopalooza in the update video I just posted. So if you want to see if I'm coming to a town near you soon, go watch the video. Because no one's watching it. And I totally get that update videos don't do as well as regular videos. That's completely fine. But if later you're like, I live in Texas and I didn't know Arlo was going to Retropalooza, then you can't say I didn't try to tell you. Anyway, on with the show. Hello, you YouTube watching peoples and persons. Today we're talking about Nintendo and DLC. First, we'll start with DLC. Lair of the Shadow Broker is a DLC pack for the game Mass Effect 2, available on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC, and is available for $9.99. Just kidding, we're talking about Nintendo DLC. You think I would ever talk about anything other than Nintendo on my channel? Ever? No way. Anyway, it's funny that DLC in Nintendo games is such a common thing now, because it was not long ago when the very idea of such a thing made a lot of people uneasy. Games being broken up and sold piecemeal at inflated prices has been a problem ever since DLC became the console gaming standard last gen, and for many, these exploitative tactics have soured the very idea of DLC. When Nintendo started to dabble in it with the Wii U and 3DS, I remember many people believing that Nintendo was stooping to an unforgivable low. I myself did not go that far, but I did feel that Nintendo's DLC was pretty hit or miss. Mario Kart 8, for example, did it pretty well. $12 for 16 new tracks and 6 new characters wasn't too shabby at all, especially considering that included weird characters from other series entirely, like Link and Isabelle. The Smash Bros. DLC, on the other hand, always seemed like a pretty terrible idea to me. $6 for 1 character and 1 stage? $35 for only 7 new characters? That's half the price of the game, and the base game has dozens already. Then not including older characters, then bringing them back in and charging for them always felt pretty shady. Unless you were crazy about Smash and absolutely needed every single character and stage regardless of how much it cost, I couldn't imagine seeing all this as a very good value. The Pikmin 3 DLC was okay. I never found the challenge maps that exciting in the first place, and extra maps were all Nintendo offered. I bought most of them because I'm a Pikmin freak and somehow I just couldn't not, but it never really felt like I was extending my enjoyment of the game by much, especially not for the price. Then Fire Emblem? If I am honest, the DLC practices in the last few games have been really bad. Like so bad, I'm surprised I haven't heard more people talking about it. A $45 season pass, more than the cost of the base game, tons and tons of DLC available day one, despite clearly being developed simultaneously with the main game. Like, I really hate to say it, but this is EA level stuff. Not very Nintendo-like at all. I'm really not sure what's going on there. Switch games, though, have really been something else. Several of Nintendo's big first-party releases have gotten or are getting hefty add-ons. Rather than a lot of individual packs, though, the Season Pass seems to be Nintendo's preferred choice, though they like to call it an expansion pass in most cases. I will admit that not allowing us to buy individual bits of DLC is a little lame. It's a little too all or nothing for me, and it's definitely banking on players buying into a pass with only the hope that it will end up being worth the price. That's just kind of how season passes tend to work. But while in theory this model could be used to exploit us, so far we've gotten a lot of really great content expansions for our games. And I'm certainly not going to suggest that every bit of DLC Nintendo's put out has been perfect. If you've seen the reviews I've done for most of them, you'll know that I had a fair number of criticisms. Also, the Pokken Tournament DX DLC is probably an even worse deal than Smash 4's. $15 for 2 new fighters? No thanks. However, if you're talking about the bigger content expansions available for some of the Switch's biggest games, I haven't regretted buying any of it, and in fact, overall, I've been really pleased with the offerings. More so than I ever was with DLC on the Wii U or 3DS. Breath of the Wild's expansion pass was the first one they offered, and its content was released throughout 2017. I had more bad stuff to say about it than any of the others. Locking a difficulty mode and quality of life features behind a paywall is a little The cool new armor isn't worth using because none of it can be upgraded. It doesn't dig into the lives of the champions or patch up the game's lackluster story like I'd hoped it would, and I do wish it offered a few more additional hours of playtime. However, I love Breath of the Wild so much that I'm happy to have more stuff to do. The new dungeon is great. A lot of the new shrines are really fun. The Trial of the Sword is deliciously challenging. Master Mode is the only hard mode, but it does enough interesting stuff to make it feel like a fun new experience. And this guy, we can't forget about this guy. Everyone keeps telling me that the Master Cycle is slower than a fast horse, but I don't know, seems plenty fast to me. I just love zipping around everywhere, and it's so much more convenient than any horse I ever met. Overall, I was glad I bought the expansion pass, and if Nintendo offers another one with the next Zelda, I'm sure I'll snatch it up without thinking. The Champion's Ballad DLC was way back in December. It wasn't until the second half of 2018 when Nintendo decided to crank their DLC game up to 11. In June, we got Splatoon 2's Octo expansion, and if some of Breath of the Wild's expansion pass content felt a little tacked on, Octo expansion really is its own unique experience. It takes place in a new location with its own style, and in terms of story and lore, it's everything that we'd wish the main game's campaign would be. And while I did feel that a lot of its challenges were a little too tedious or frustrating, a lot more were super creative and fun and interesting, and more skilled players of the game than I can't sing its praises enough. Octo expansion doesn't come in multiple DLC bits like the other passes, but it still manages to offer a hefty amount of additional content. Especially considering their difficulty, these challenges take a lot of time to work through, and even longer if you want to complete everything. Then, no spoilers of course, the last boss is just phenomenal, and the whole ending makes Octo expansion worth the price of admission. Then, only 2 weeks after Octo expansion, we got Donkey Kong Adventure, the DLC campaign for Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Unlike the other DLC packs on this list, individual items are offered separately here. Also, none of it was developed by Nintendo themselves. However, this is still an exclusive Mario game, and it follows the same trend of a great big chunk of cool DLC for a great Switch game, so I'm definitely counting it. Because, dude, Donkey Kong Adventure offers a tremendous amount of bang for your buck. It's got like a 10-hour story mode, plus a whole bunch of extra challenges. And if you buy the whole season pass, you get 8 more extra hard challenges, 5 new co-op maps, and a bunch of new guns, all for $20. That is a deal right there. Lastly, we've got the expansion pass for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Now, this one is $30, which is quite a lot. I haven't played the game, so I couldn't tell you exactly how much extra content is on offer here, but if the list of new missions is any indication, it's a lot. Then on top of this great big long list, oh, look at that. Soon it's getting a big, huge new story campaign. How big is it, you ask? Well, I guess we won't know until it comes out in September, but it's at least big enough to get its own standalone release. I could be wrong, but my gut tells me that that means it's probably gonna be pretty darn big. It's getting a physical edition for Pete's sake. So yeah, I'd say all this DLC business is working out pretty well for everyone. Nintendo gets to make an extra chunk of cash, and we all get to enjoy some of their biggest first-party offerings longer than we originally would have. I mean, I have to say, there really is something special about playing a game a ton, loving it to pieces, then picking it up again for some fresh new content months or even close to a year down the line. It's truly exciting. It's just like, whoa, I remember how much I love this game. Whoa, a bunch more stuff to do. It's like a little bit of that happy feeling of getting a sequel, except you don't have to wait 5 years for it. We've reached what is perhaps the most important part of this conversation, though. What other big Nintendo games might we expect to see DLC for? And I mean both released and upcoming games. There's a real obvious one that I think just about everybody's got in mind right now, and it's an obscure little niche title called Super Mario Odyssey. The game has gotten DLC, but so far it's all been free. Luigi's Balloon World offered us a really fun little diversion, and costumes and photo mode filters have just been heaped onto us. The question is, though, is that it? Because it would be way too easy to add a kingdom or two onto this game. Just an extra planet or something on the map screen, whatever. You'd probably be tasked with collecting a special kind of moon so that it doesn't interfere with your grand total. I mean, you can't really go further than $9.99, can you? But seriously, just make some new areas, fill them with moons and some new transformations and maybe a boss or two, and call it a day. We would all go crazy for that. I mean, I know I would. Thing is, just looking at Nintendo's other games, it feels like if there was going to be a big content expansion for Super Mario Odyssey, it probably would have been announced by now. The game did come later in 2017, and maybe they want to spread things out a bit, so it's definitely possible that they'll announce it in January or something. Heck, it could be next E3, or even the one after that. There are no rules to this stuff. But if Nintendo ends up doing what I think a lot of us are hoping, and they develop a Super Mario Odyssey 2, as it were, in the span of only a few years, their window of opportunity for a big DLC pack is shrinking fast. A new game followed by an expansion pass a year later, followed by another new game a year after that, people might start to feel a little burned out. I know I wouldn't, but I can't speak for everybody. And you know what? It's hard to decide if all this free DLC suggests one way or the other if the game will get a big content expansion. They're doing a fair amount of work on this littler stuff. Does that mean that they're just that busy developing content for the game and that a big pack is imminent? Or does it mean that we're getting all this little free stuff because we're not getting anything bigger? I don't know, but I can certainly keep my fingers crossed for that Sunshine Kingdom. Or that Moonrise Kingdom. Kirby Star Allies getting some sort of large expansion is definitely possible, even if my bet would be no. They've been updating the game with new characters since launch, and apparently they've even added some new stages as well, all for free. This definitely is a scenario where it feels like this much free content means there probably won't be any paid content coming. If there was though, it would have to be a ton of content for really darn cheap to interest me. I already feel that for the price, the game offers a pitiful amount of playtime, so if I'm ponying up anymore, it's gotta be for like pretty much the whole game again. For like 10 bucks. I know that is probably not gonna happen though, unfortunately. Though, I will say, this might be the rare time I wouldn't mind paying for a hard mode because it would make the game like 8 times more fun. Mario Tennis Aces, yeah, it could get DLC beyond the characters they're slowly adding. It's possible. It's the same thing as Kirby though. There's so little to do that they would have to add a truckload of new stuff to get my attention. It's been months and I'm still miffed about how quickly I ran out of stuff to do in that game. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? I don't think I see it happening. Pokken is a Wii U port and it comes with DLC, despite including previous DLC for free, so technically Mario Kart could do the same thing, but for some reason I just don't see it. I don't know, I just don't think they'll bring us any other major updates. Call it a hunch. More interestingly though, let's talk about some games that haven't been released yet. The upcoming Pokemon games, both Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and next year's core titles, will probably not offer DLC. Game Freak has talked about how they don't want DLC in their main games, so there you go. Still possible for sure, but I kind of feel like if it was gonna happen, it would have happened on the 3DS. Smash Bros. Ultimate, that's an easy one. Of course there's gonna be DLC. A lot of it. I don't know if there's gonna be a season pass type of deal or what, but after the pricing on the Wii U and 3DS versions, I certainly hope so. Seriously though, I think the idea that DLC is the future of Smash is pretty unanimous. I mean, it's gonna be hard to top this title, so it only makes sense that Nintendo will try to support it for as long as they can. I mean, why not? People are hungry for Smash. Might as well give them what they want. Fighters, items, stages, music, there's really no end to what they can bring in post-launch. If I might make a prediction though, if there is DLC, they won't mention it until well after launch. They want this to look like the most perfectly, awesomely ultimate Smash ever, so I doubt they'll want to dilute that idea with the promise of future content. There are plenty of other games I could talk about. The new Fire Emblem will be getting DLC, that's for dang dang sure, but the last one we'll touch on today is Metroid Prime 4. My knee-jerk reaction to the idea is, DLC in a Metroid game? There's no way they would do that. It's not that kind of game. How would that even work? But there was once a time when I felt the same way about Zelda. To be fair though, Breath of the Wild's open world lends itself well to adding in a bunch of junk after the fact, especially with the shrines. You can make a shrine pop up anywhere you want and it won't be weird. You'll just be like, huh, I guess there is a shrine under there all along. For all I know, there's 1,000 shrines in this world, I don't know. But Metroid though, assuming Prime 4 follows the series formula of a cohesive world where progression is based on the abilities you obtain, we can only hope and pray, just tacking on a new area or whatever isn't exactly something you can do, unless you're just talking about a free update that scatters some extra power-ups or collectibles or something across your pre-existing map. Adding stuff is going to interfere with the game's design. A new area isn't going to easily tie in with the rest of them. Anything you gain will likely throw off the difficulty balance. There are only two ways I can see a sizable content expansion for Metroid Prime 4 happening. The first is that you're given access to a new area with a new little story or something, but it's only available after you've beaten the main story, like an extra chapter. The second way would be a completely standalone campaign set in a different time and place entirely. And if they were intended to tell a deeper story or even just a separate story, I'd be all for either option. I mean, heck, we are starving for more Metroid right now. You think I'm gonna turn down any amount of Metroid in addition to Prime 4's main story? We definitely won't know how things will go down until we get there though. It'll be really, really interesting to see if they end up announcing anything. And real quick, while we're on the subject, do you ever just wake up in the morning, remember that they're making Metroid Prime 4, and find that you're a little more excited to get out of bed? Yeah, me too. Well, that's how I feel about this whole DLC thing, but what about you? Is DLC a great way to continue enjoying Nintendo's games? Is it as nasty a practice as ever? Be sure to let me know, and until next time, I'll be off riding a motorcycle in Zelda. Riding a motorcycle in Zelda. If that's not a case for DLC, I just don't know what is.